Here we go again. This is going to be a mix between HashrateUp Focus and, as you can see, I have some interview partners with me. So the guys from Wilson Mining decided to join me again. Hello, guys. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having us.
The last time we spoke, we talked about the proto miner and everything else. And I would recommend everybody to check that out if they haven't. It was a good interview. Just doing some admin here. We're recording at 922.361, and our hash price is at 42.50. That is also what we want to talk about today. I had a couple episodes about the hash price, what it is, what happens if it goes up, what happens if it goes down, how does the network react. And what we're doing today is supposed to focus very much on the operator side of things, right? So what happens when hash price goes down? I mean, everybody parties when hash price goes up. I'm assuming that's an easy job, right? Nothing really happens. But when margins compress and when prices get increased, when the revenue goes down, I want to understand from your side as hosting operators what you guys do or what you have to do. HashrateUp, hardware sales, advisory, hosting, and site brokerage. Find new and used ASIC deals through the website and the Telegram channel below. Make smarter decisions with HashrateUp. But before we start, maybe Stephen, give us some basic thoughts on hash price over the last 4 weeks. What are you thinking? What are you seeing?
I mean, it's low. Hash price has, been pretty low for quite a while now. I kind of certainly thought it would be higher than what it is right now at this time of the year, and that just hasn't been the case. Price really hasn't run kind of as hot as we all kind of wanted it to. Um, But that being said, like there's a common phrase like in like commodity production businesses, which is that I think is really helpful kind of when times are tough, which is, the good times don't last forever and the bad neither do the bad, right? And so, you know, when hash price is low, it's easy to kind of get really discouraged and your margins are compressing and it's easy to start kind of second guessing what you're doing here and why you're doing it but really it's the things are very cyclical and you should always remember and know that we are going to hit another bull run. It's just a matter of when, and you certainly want to be mining when that happens. And so, having kind of a longer time horizon with things really kind of helps kind of deal with a lot of this is mental. And I guess, what I mean by that is like, it's just easy to just say this was a dumb investment, get out of it, and call it quits, right? Versus taking a long time horizon and understanding that the key to low prices is low prices. That's another common phrase. So,
Yeah, I think like a lot of people look at mining way too short term. 2 years is a long time in Bitcoin, and a long time for Bitcoiners.
right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's going into a different direction, which I'm happy to explore more. Um, but what you're saying is you still a Bitcoin mining buyer, right? That dreaded cost of what does it cost to mine a Bitcoin at these prices probably going to be like, I don't know, 120 or something. So a lot of people are going to be underwater and they're going to mine Bitcoin for more expensively than they could just be buying it for. But that bull run can obviously change that in a month from now, right? Then we could be at 150 and hash price is back at 55 or whatever, and everything is fine. But tell me, and maybe Eric, this is one for you. Like, what happens operationally inside the mine and with your customers when this happens? Because as I said, when hash price goes up, people are not nervous at all, but when it comes down, they're like, they see they're mining at a loss maybe. And yeah, let's go technical first. What happens on the technical side, and then maybe we can get into the more business or contractual side of things as well, Stephen.
So you start getting into firmware specifically, obviously, so you can. Well, you shouldn't be on stock firmware anyway. Stock firmware is pretty off for the Bitmain. So, but yeah, you start getting into firmware, so you can kind of play and control what the power level's at. So specifically underclocking is kind of the big thing, obviously. That'll increase efficiency, but just getting off stock firmware in general will increase efficiency. But you want to get your consumption down, whether it be through a container, lowering the fan speeds, because if you're underclocking, you'll have less power, so you can lower the fan speeds through that. You just get everything. You just start running as lean as you can. You don't run as cheap as you can, but you gotta start buckling down and get leaner. Run different air filters,
Mm.
run thinner air filters, or run. If it's winter, you gotta run thicker air filters anyway. But yeah, just get lean, get your power consumption down, and start getting as efficient as you can get.
Okay. And do you recommend certain firmware, or is it different firmware recommendations for different models?
So for the What's miners, there's no real firmware. The What's miners, you can't really underclock them. They get kind of the same efficiency no matter what power level they're at. So it's mainly the bit mains. We use brains a lot. I like brains. It seems to work the best. It's the most consistent. And then obviously, no matter what hash price you're at, it's high or low, whatever you need consistency. That's obviously the more consistent you are, the more money you're going to make. And so brains has always
Mhm.
been the most consistent. There's obviously Vanish, which works fine typically, but I've never been able to get it to work consistently. Luxor OS tends to blow up miners, so obviously avoid that. But yeah, brains
Okay.
is what we use a lot of.
Um. All right. And so, how far do you go? Like, how many corners do you cut, and where? How do you strike the balance between cutting too many corners and causing damage versus optimizing?
So you only learn that by experience, I suppose, and you figure out what corners you can cut. I guess it completely depends on your environment. For us specifically, we can't cut corners on air filters because obviously, it's we got snow coming in, so or we got snow, in winter, so we need to run thicker air filters. So we can't cheap out on air. Where we can cheap out is we can turn the fan speeds down because obviously it's colder out there, so we don't need the fan speeds higher. So if we start turning fan speeds down, the colder it gets. We're automated, so obviously the colder it gets, the fans automatically lower. But again, that's where we start cutting corners. We can you know the miners themselves, obviously the fans aren't spinning as fast, so they're consuming less air too. And then we get more efficiency just from the colder temps in general. There's no real. It's hard to make generalization on what corners to cut on where, but
Okay.
it's it's
Yeah,
really
you
tough. It's
you'll
really
you'll only know once you break something. BitX, solomining.de, got it. Premium, made in Germany. You want to go fancy? Go for NerdX or NerdQX++ for a lot of power. Worldwide shipping. Check out solomining.de today. Okay, and then cost to install. How much does it cost to install firmware? Like if I'm a customer and I have a miner and I tell you, hey, I would like to install Brains, is that free of charge? Does that cost money? What are we talking?
so at our site for us hosting customers, it's completely free. So we don't charge for it. It's really easy to do. It's really not that complicated. It's literally with Brains Toolbox. You just download Brains Toolbox. Then you pull up the big list of miners that come up when Brains Toolbox scans your entire IP, it pulls it up, and then you just hit install, and it's that simple. It's the
Okay.
configuration of it which gets a little tough because obviously you have to set the fan speed. Well, you can do auto fan speed. We guess the temperature. You got to set the hash rate. You go the hash rate, and there's one other thing, but I'm forgetting. But yeah, it's free. It's not expensive at all. It's pretty simple to do.
Okay. All right, cool. And then on the, just to maybe clarify that, right? So if you are installing third-party firmware, it allows you to run the miner more efficiently, meaning more output for the amount of energy that you consume. You can also
Exactly.
run the miners at lower power draws. Um, Maybe Stephen, going into the commercial side of things, how much of an issue is that for you as an operator? Because obviously you guys earn money from
Mm-hmm.
selling mainly electricity plus the maintenance, right? So if everybody's running in low power mode, what does that mean for you as the operator?
I mean, it means that we make less money too. We're kind of big believers in taking risk with our customers, and so if times are tough and you guys aren't making a lot of money, I'll go with you and not make a lot of money. Um, the way we see it is like, my job is to help, my customers make money here. Like that's why you invest in a hosted miner. Like they're expensive, and we need to make money from these things. So, um, there's no scenario where I'm gonna force anybody to lose money with us just because I want to make more money. And that's just not long term going to work out super well for me running
Okay.
this business. So I'm happy to make less money with you, and that's just the business that we're in. So
And does that include like pressing pause on the hosting contract? Like how does that work? If I'm now running an, I don't know, S21 or M50 S plus plus, and it's nearing that time where I'm like, okay, I'm if I turn this machine on, I'm actually losing money. What options do I have as a client?
yeah, you can. It depends on the kind of miner that you have. Like if you're still running, an S19, I'm gonna be, kind of pushing you to either upgrade or, we kind of got to get you out of there. This is kind of, getting to a point where we got to make a decision on it. Um, and you've already ROI'd the machine at that point, anyways. If you're running a new generation machine, we can turn you off for a while and kind of wait and see what happens. We can do some sort of profit sharing type arrangement, and that way you can still mine, and we can both still make money in that scenario. That's our preferred option, um, and we're kind of super flexible where we'll work out kind of profit sharing agreements based on, a bunch of different factors, that each party is happy with. But like, turning off and just not running at all for either of us, that's like the last option. And we would prefer to, you know, get a profit sharing agreement lined up and figured out, for a short term type of situation. And then, once the bull market things pick back up again, you're obviously going to want to get on a flat rate plan so you get all the upside. Again, flexibility helps.
Yeah, I love that flexibility. I want you to give more detail on the profit split and how it works, and also talk about the price increase you guys just had and what that did to demand of arrangements like that.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, we'll kind of do it, profit sharing, on a case by case basis. So like if you want to do something really, really short term, like, you know, a handful of months just to kind of get through the bad times. We've done like a 50-50 profit split where you just pay the power at cost and then we'll split the profits 50-50. If you want to do more of a long, or like if you want to do more like an 80-20 split, like 80 to the customer, 20 to us, we would require, that be a longer term relationship or a longer term agreement where if I'm only going to be taking 20%, especially during a bear market, I want to have the upside in the bull market there. I don't want to take 20%, which is very, very minimal during a bear market, and then you switch to the flat rate plan. Like I'm just getting the short end of the stick on both sides there. So
Yeah.
it really depends on kind of how long you want the agreement to go out to. Um, but again, we'll work with each customer, individually on this, and we're not going to, we're still small enough where we don't have to pigeonhole everybody into one plan, basically.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay,
Um,
talk about the price increase as well, please.
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we got a rate increase from our utility company just a couple days ago. Um, and energy inflation is happening, and it's happening where we're at. And so I would imagine that we're, not the only ones that are going to be getting rate increases, kind of going across the board here in the United States. That just is what it is. There's not a lot, we can do to make the rate go down.
Influence
I
it,
mean, there's
yeah.
literally nothing we can do to make the rate go down. Like that's the situation that we're in. Our immediate thoughts are, diversifying like our future sites away from just one utility. So if one utility is raising their rates more than the others, then we can at least have the option to move things if need be. Um, but again, I personally just kind of think it's going to be across the board
That's
rate increases.
that's what I'm thinking, right? I mean, there's reasons why they increase prices. and usually all the electricity operators or the grid operators, they all share the same reasoning, right? They all have the same baseline cost, and it just
Yep.
amplifies how much of a shitty business Bitcoin mining really is, and you really got to love it and be good at it, because you cannot control your revenue, and then 70% of your cost is power, and you can't really control that either, right? Unless you're a certain size. So it really makes the room in which you can optimize and operate in really, really small. And you gotta, as I said, you gotta really love doing it to do it. So just to
Yeah.
explain that profit split more for those who are confused, because remember, this is like a basic series, right? So the idea here is to basically say you have a fixed cost portion in your hosting agreement. Instead of it being 100% fixed at 8 cents or 7.5 cents or whatever, you're now taking a portion of that hosting agreement price, and you're making that flexible, so it moves up and down with the hash price, because your profit obviously depends on the revenue that comes in, right? So now both the hoster and the hostee are aligned in communication, because now you both depend on having good relations to keep the machine running. You both lose when hash price goes down, and when hash price goes up, you both win. But obviously, as Stephen said, that there has to be earnings on both sides. So if you want an 80-20 split, where a large portion of the profit in a downtime is flexible, then it needs to go the other way too, because obviously we need the hoster to survive. Otherwise, the machine has nowhere to live, right? So we got to keep that in mind as well when we when the customers come and approach you and want to squeeze you with their two ASICs.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So I want to talk about hash price outlook a little bit. Or let me see, what did I not cover here? All right, this is another one for you, Eric. What are some common mistakes smaller operators make when trying to lower OPEX? Like, where do you see other operators cutting corners too far very commonly?
Using shitty containers is probably the main thing. Is they try to buy they start off buying the cheapest possible container and say, all right, this is how I get cheaper, is I just buy cheaper containers. And they end up spending more money and time trying to make the shitty container run well than making a good container, you know, leaner,
Mm.
so to speak. So buying a good container, having a good base, being able to control fans, the filters and stuff like that, having already, again, good airflow, a good solid container, that's going to be cheaper in the long run, because again, we have upstream containers. I don't have to go out there and mess with the containers ever. I change the filters and that's it. That's all I do with the containers. I spend no time. The only time I spend is taking broken miners off the rack, fixing them, shipping them out, putting them back on the rack when they're repaired. I spend zero time with networking, zero time fixing the containers, zero time fixing fan motors, making sure there's no water or snow getting in, because our container's already so good, and we run the correct air filters. I spend no time on it. And that's, if you're spending no time on it, then you're spending no money on it. So running good containers is how you run a really lean operation.
This episode is sponsored by HashBranch, the easiest way to mine Bitcoin in the US. Sourcing hardware and rack space usually is a mess. Bad deal structures, misaligned incentives, and no visibility after deployment. I have placed tens of thousands of ASICs in partnership with HashBranch. What I like most is that they cut through the noise. Fair pricing, aligned terms, and access to hosting that actually works. Use code HashrateUp100, visit hashbranch.com today to get $100 off of each miner that you order. Hash price, Stephen, where are we going from here? Thoughts?
I mean, I have no idea. I've been wrong about my assumptions
You want to
like the
flip a
whole
coin?
time here, basically. Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of good to just understand. Like, I do this for a living, and I have no idea, right? Yeah, I pay my mortgage. Like, this is how I make my living. I do this all day, every day, and we might as well just flip a coin. Your guess is as good as mine. And so I wouldn't spend a lot of time, if you were thinking about making this investment. Like, I wouldn't spend very much time trying to predict hash price. Like, you know, at some point there's going to be a moment where hash price is really high. and at some point there's going to be a period where hash price is right in the middle, and then it'll be low. And when that happens is anyone's best guess, and I have no idea. But it happens. It will happen. It's happened in the past. It'll continue to happen. It happens in other commodity markets, just like Bitcoin mining. So really
Good
hard to
point.
say. I mean, I think we have more upside than downside right now, personally, Jesse. I just think that we've been sitting so low for such what feels like a long time, which is only been a couple years, but we've been sitting so low for a while that it feels like we have more upside potential than downside. But again, I have no idea.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, couple of thoughts around this. So typically, number one, I think ASIC pricing gets better if hash price sits low like this, because a lot of people still look
Mhm.
at the dollar returns and the dollar revenue. Even though on the Bitcoin basis, the price is really, the hash price doesn't really move. What I find fascinating is growth, right? I mean, I don't know if you remember last time, but I was saying stuff around like, if it's at 1 zettahash, it's going to struggle growing another 10% because bringing on 100 exahash is super difficult, yada, 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 yada. We just added 100 exahash in like 10 days, right? It's crazy. So I'm kind of have to eat my words there, where I was all about the low hanging fruit being all grabbed and stuff. And the difficulty adjustments, they show you that. I mean, we're halfway through the epoch. Hash price is at 4250, and it's minus 1.3%. And
Yeah,
the previous upswing was plus 6, and you're just like, who's plugging all of this
crazy.
in? um and
Yeah.
it just means there's low power somewhere, in very vast amounts. And as you said, like the question that I'm asking really is not, well, where's hash price going, can only be answered by, how much cheap power is out there. And obviously that's a very, very difficult
Or
question to answer.
the manufacturers are just plugging excess
Or that,
inventory in themselves.
but
I
they
don't
have
ever
to have the
count that
power as
out.
well, you know
Yes, they have to have the power as well, and there's I still think there's a decent amount of cheap power, kind of, if depending on where you're willing to go for it.
yeah.
Um, but it seems like there hasn't been. I guess I'm suspicious because I haven't seen huge ASIC orders like publicly, like was happening last cycle, like with the public miners. They were announcing these huge orders. Seems like everybody was making, even the private miners, like, were announcing really big order buys, and I have yet to see anybody make like these huge announcements where we're purchasing 10 exahashes, 20 exahashes. Like, I don't know, I just haven't seen it, so I've been
I
a
think
little,
a
you
lot
know
of that was also driven by asset lean mining, public miners, right? They could
yep,
just sign hosting
yeah,
deals and deploy these units very quickly. That was the name of the game.
hmm
Today, it's all about owning more of the infrastructure and being able to pivot to AI. So, there isn't that commitment. But guys, we're going to see each other very soon again. I want to close out on a quick rapid fire, one for each of you. Eric first. What's the number one recommendation to clients when hash price drops?
Run firmware.
Okay. Firmware is number one. All right. When hash price drops significantly, what do you do first, Stephen? When you see that difficulty adjustment of plus 5% hit, what's your first move?
I mean, I guess I don't really have like a anything that we are doing specifically. You'll definitely get more people reaching out, or customers reaching out, kind of looking for reassurances, I guess, that that everything's going to be okay. And so, again, like, a lot of it's just mental and kind of explaining the long game to people, and just zoom out here a little bit. It's going to be fine. The Bitcoin network still needs miners. We aren't going away anytime soon. So just zoom out. Like, that it's almost always the approach to take, is just to zoom out here in this Bitcoin mining and Bitcoin world in general. Zoom out. Things are up and to the right, guys. It's gonna be a wonderful journey. So
Stephen says we will be fine. I believe him. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Quick and snappy this time. We'll do this again very soon on a different topic. I really enjoy this format. And yeah, I hope to see you soon. Thank you guys. Cheers. Bye.